This edition of Mac Voices is brought to you by Squarespace. Everything you need to create an exceptional website. To take 10% off your first purchase, visit squarespace.com and use the offer code MacVoices10. That's MacVoices10. Welcome to Mac Voices. This is the talk of the Mac community. I'm Chuck Joyner, back from a vacation, or I should say a trip, I guess, to the islands of Hawaii. Mr. Joe Kissell is back with us. Love the shirt, Joe.
Thank you. This was the loudest of the Aloha shirts I bought, so I thought it only appropriate.
Now, if we pan the camera down, do we see a hula skirt or anything, or?
No, just sort of pants. I'm actually wearing pants today, just in case, because you never know when you might have to. Yeah. Anyway,
stop right there, please. Well, this time I guess we're going to be talking about one book, two different versions, and we're going to space this out in time a little bit, folks. We're going to talk about version 1 of Take Control of Mavericks. And then Joe's going to come back later, and I mean later as in time later, after Maverick ships, and talk to us about taking control of Mavericks then, the 1.1 version of the book.
And I'm not going to change my shirt the entire time.
You really like the shirt, don't you, Joe?
I might be wearing this for weeks. Who knows?
Oh, that's good. We don't know exactly when Mavericks is going to come out. In fact, I was reading as we tape this today, there was speculation that Mavericks might get some formal announcements at the October 22nd event, but that's not sure.
Yep, could be.
So, Joe, we've been down this road before, the way Take Control handles upgrading to a new version of the OS. And just to quickly summarize, and correct me if I'm wrong, but a 1.0 version of the book gets released now. Folks can buy it. It helps them through preparing to do an orderly transition. Then when Mavericks actually ships, the 1.1 version becomes available, and that's when you guide us through all the new features of the new OS.
Right. So what we've found in the last few versions of Mac OS 10, OS 10, is that if we release the book exactly the same time that the OS comes out, and then we tell people, now you're going to download it now, but you've got 3 or 4 or 6 hours of work to do, backups and cleaning up old files and other kind of stuff before you can actually get started. That doesn't make for happy readers. So we want you to do all that background preparatory stuff before you actually click that download button. And then when Mavericks is released, we will give you an expanded version of the book. That, of course, will be a free update to anyone who already bought the first version. And that will tell you not only how to do all the stuff after, clicking the download button, but also quite a few other details about Mavericks that we're not allowed to tell you yet because of our NDA. So the book is going to do something like double in size. I forget the exact page count, but we have a lot more stuff to add that will not only get you through the initial installation and configuration process, but also acquaint you with some of the new features and help you to feel better about some of the things that are missing and commiserate about stuff that Apple, messed up, which, happens, and just sort of smooth over the process of getting into Mavericks. So I've had the unpleasant experiences dealing with Mavericks so that you don't have to.
And we appreciate it. That's why you needed a vacation to Hawaii.
Yeah, well, it was, I can't really say it was a vacation. I did 9 hours worth of presentations over the course of a week. Wow. And with, a couple days off in between. So we did get to see some sights and do a little bit of exploring. But, during my trip, I had 2 new books come out. And and now I come back to a very full, roster of, more stuff that has to happen because many other books urgently need updating now. And of course, as we record this, I'm not quite finished with version 1.1 of the upgrading book. And I really want to have it completely done before Maverick ships so that we can do it, right at that moment. So I'll be burning the midnight oil here a bit.
Yeah, I bet. I bet. Well, Joe, it always not worries me, but I guess surprises me to hear you say we have that many hours of work of prep. Now, I would think that that's mitigated a little bit if we've bought all your other books and paid attention to things like backups and some of those things. So that should help us, I would think. But what do we need to do in this particular case to get ready?
Well, what I tell readers in this book is very similar to what I told them the last time when I had the book about upgrading to Mountain Lion, which is if you scrupulously back up your Mac already, if you have a great backups, including crucially a bootable duplicate that you keep updated often, if you always keep all your software up to date, and if you are used to this process, you've been through multiple OS X upgrades, so you know what to expect, then you probably don't need the book. I mean, I'd love to have your $10 or $15. Talk about pricing later, but really, you can probably get through it on your own. If you are nervous, if you haven't done this before, or you haven't done it in a long time, or you are worried about some of the things that you may encounter that are surprising when you upgrade. And believe me, I have encountered some surprises during my many test installations of Mavericks. And I, curse at my Macs, and I file bug reports, and I, do Google searches like, what on earth is going on here? Like, okay. So I've been through this, and I can't tell you that I have found every surprise or every problem, but I found quite a few. And so if you want to not be surprised, if you want some expert advice on how to get through some things that might happen, well, I have a book for you.
Joe, something interesting has been happening with iOS 7 and with Mavericks this time. It seems like the NDAs are not being respected quite the way they have been in the past. And I'm not trying to trick you. I don't want you to say anything you shouldn't, because I know you all try to abide by those NDAs very carefully. But is it a consensus kind of thing that people are just going to ignore them, or is Apple not cracking down the way they used to on some of this?
It's really weird. Apple, I mean, the text of the NDAs hasn't really changed, but Apple has stopped cracking down on media reports of stuff in Mavericks that really blatantly violates the NDA, and they sort of gave up on chasing these people a few years ago, much to our surprise. We in the Tidbits and Take Control world feel like we have too much to lose by encouraging Apple I've lost my words, but if Apple gets mad at us by getting Apple upset at us, that can only cause grief. So we tend to with the NDAs, we tend to err on the conservative side, and there are things that I'm sure I could get away with telling you all, but just on that off chance that Apple decides they are going to be in a cranky mood and adhere to the letter of the law, we'll hold off. I don't know exactly why Apple made either decision. I don't know why they are so secretive about so many things, and why they've decided not to enforce secrecy with this kind of thing. I think part of it is they get more press, as bloggers and journalists and, book authors uncover things, they get a lot of free publicity and, builds excitement and interest. So that could be part of it. But I gave up years ago trying to answer the question, why, when it comes to Apple, like why anything. Apple does things and I'm like, wow, that was a really annoying thing they just did there, and somebody must have done it for a reason, but they will never tell us, so what's the point in guessing? I have no idea.
Yeah, good point. Well, and I think it makes sense to at least respect it. I don't know about you, but I'm not sure that I would want necessarily every interview that I do here with somebody previewing it before I actually get to edit it and post it and maybe smooth out some rough spots. And it's not like anybody ever says anything surprisingly confidential that I cut out. But, the odd Skype hiccup or a sneeze or whatever, well, there's no reason to put that out. So you want to try to put your best foot forward. And I so much of the time, I think that's what it's about. But the fact that they're not enforcing it is just a little different.
Think different. What can I say? I don't know.
So, Joe, what are, other than obviously backups and bootable backups especially, what are some of the other key things that you would recommend doing in preparation for this upgrade?
Well, I've said this before, and I will say it again. It is more true now than it has been in many years. Any possible software update that you can apply, do it before you upgrade to Mavericks. Go through your preference panes, go through your applications, go through all of your little menu bar status doohickeys, go through all of those little background processes. Of course, you can go to the Mac App Store and one click or two just update everything that's in there, but I'm more concerned about the things that aren't in the App Store. Go through your mail plugins, your browser plugins in Safari, Chrome, Firefox. Make sure that everything is up to date. I have had, I do this normally. I mean, I sort of religiously keep everything, at least I feel like I keep everything up to date, but in the process of upgrading to Mavericks, I keep finding things like, oh, wow, forgot about that, and it's broken. Or, oh, I thought that was up to date because it has a built-in auto-updater, but hey, guess what? It didn't auto-update, and now it's crashing. And there have been just too many of those things, so that one thing alone will save you lots of grief. Don't wait until after you install Mavericks to update your other software.
This edition of MacVoices is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that makes it easy to create your own professional website, online portfolio, or e-commerce site. For a free trial and 10% off your first purchase, go to squarespace.com and use the discount code MacVoices10. That's MacVoices10. It's one thing to want to build a website to express yourself. It's a whole other thing to build a website for your business. And it's a whole other thing yet again to build a site that supports commerce of any kind. Selling things from your website changes the game in a big way. That's why Squarespace puts such importance on supporting e-commerce, making their system work with every single Squarespace template design, and supporting e-commerce in the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, Belgium, France, Germany, Ireland, the Netherlands, and Spain. That's a lot of commerce. Physical goods or digital downloads, it doesn't matter. Squarespace gives you power to track orders, send customer update emails, print packing slips, and more, all from a single interface. And it probably won't come as a surprise that your store doesn't have to look like everyone else's with some cookie-cutter design options. Your site can be completely customized with the Squarespace developer platform. You can even accept donations with Squarespace's e-commerce system. It's all there to meet your needs. PCI compliant and SSL enabled, Squarespace's commerce options are secure so that you and your customers have complete peace of mind. The world is just waiting for what you have to offer, so get to it. Visit squarespace.com now to get a 14-day free trial and start working with Squarespace for e-commerce. When you're ready, use the offer code MacVoices10, that's MacVoices10, to get 10% off your first purchase. That helps us stay in business and puts you in business. A win-win situation. I like win-win situations, and I bet you do too. Squarespace. Everything you need to create an exceptional website. Thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this edition of MacVoices. I think that's very sound advice, especially since there's going to be, little bug, there's going to be so much stuff coming out with upgrades after Mavericks that you don't want to be fighting sort of the battle you didn't need to fight.
Right. And then, another thing I've often said is it's a great idea for Mac users just to periodically do some spring cleaning. Well, it's fall, but anyway, to do seasonal cleaning. And of course, you're going to be downloading a 5-ish gigabyte installer, so you need space for that. But there are a lot of things that you can get rid of now that will just not only clear space on your disk or your SSD, but also reduce the possibilities of conflicts and just have fewer files and less clutter to deal with. So if you've been thinking that, I have kind of a lot of software that I downloaded and tried out and don't really use anymore, or I've got a lot of big files that I haven't really gone through, or whatever the case may be, this is a really good time to go through and do that uncluttering before you upgrade, because again, that will smooth the process during and after the upgrade.
Don't I recall one of our conversations about this subject, that you need to make sure you have adequate hard drive space, and hopefully nobody has taken their drive down to, 5 or 10 gigs of free store space. But
sure,
isn't it a good idea to have as much as you can get?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so you need space to download the installer itself, but then you don't want the installer to fill up every last megabyte on your drive either, because the installer needs a significant amount of breathing space to do its thing. In most cases, after you do the installation, the installer will delete itself, so you'll recover that space. Although you may not want it to delete itself because you may want to run it again. So I'll talk about that in the book. You'll want to copy it off someplace else. But yeah, you don't have to overdo it. I mean, you don't need 100 gigabytes of free space, but 20, 30, 40, 50 would be fine. More would be great too.
Yeah. Well, and there are a couple great utilities out there that will let you scan your disk and find out what's taking up all the space.
Yeah, there are a whole bunch of those.
Yeah, I happen to like Space Gremlin and Daisy Disk. They present things in different fashions, but I can't even tell you, there are at least 3 or 4 that I've used on top of those, that it almost just depends on what visualization you like.
Yeah, I mention several apps in that category in my book, and there are a lot more that I don't mention. So whether you want to use a tool like that, or whether you just want to go fishing around manually, do get rid of the old crap, because you'll be glad you did later.
Yeah. So we've covered, I guess, backups. We've covered space. We've covered upgrades, and I know there are a lot of different little tweaks in the book that need to be paid attention to. And folks, I guess, we should really make the point, even if you don't feel like you need the version 1.0, get that, and then you'll be able to get the 1.1 for free. So it's a free upgrade. And with something like this, it can never hurt to have somebody like Joe guide you through it.
Right. So we're doing a little bit, we'll talk about the book more in a second. We're doing something a little bit different with the pricing. So for people just coming in new who have never bought one of the upgrading books before, you buy version 1.0, that's $10, and you get a free upgrade to version 1.1. But if you don't buy until version 1.1 comes out, then it's $15. So basically saying save a third by buying now. So that's part of it. If you had take control of upgrading to Mountain Lion, then you can upgrade for a small fee. And if you had take control of upgrading to any of the previous big cats, you can upgrade for a slightly larger fee. So the difference between this book and the Mountain Lion book is not nearly as great as the difference between this book and an older version. So we do try to take care of our readers and offer generous discounts on upgrades. But then again, certainly, this book incorporates a lot of material from the previous version, but I also went through it with a fine-tooth comb and found lots of, little things. So I don't know if you've ever had to go through someone's hair with a fine-tooth comb, if you know what I'm talking about, but you find stuff. And it's by no means just a copy and paste. There's a lot of new stuff in Mavericks that is worth knowing about. One thing I want to mention, though, which was possibly the biggest surprise to me at all. We've been doing this for 10 years. 10 years ago this month, I released Take Control of Upgrading to Panther. And that was the book that started this whole Take Control enterprise. So that's crazy that I've been doing this for 10 years. But panther, tiger, leopard, snow leopard, lion, mountain lion, all of those versions of OS 10, the first thing I said was, well, make sure that your computer can handle it. Make sure that your Mac is recent enough and has good enough, RAM and disk space and processor and all these kinds of things, because Apple always cuts off some older machines. They say, you can use machines that are 5 years old, but not your machines that are 6 years old or whatever it may be. Well, what's different in Mavericks is this is the first time in 10 years that Apple has not changed the system requirements. So if your Mac can run Mountain Lion, it can run Mavericks, which I'm surprised at. I'm really happy about it, because that means that older Macs don't need to be recycled or upgraded. You don't have to spend money on a new Mac necessarily. You can get an almost new Mac by installing Mavericks. But this is a first, so enjoy it while it lasts. I don't expect we'll get through another major upgrade with that policy.
Agreed. Well, the book, the 1.0 version of the book, is Take Control of Mavericks. And
Take Control of Upgrading to Mavericks.
Excuse me, Take Control of Upgrading to Mavericks. And I love the fact that if you buy it early, you get basically a $5 discount. That encourages everyone to get that book, but also to do it right. And the first steps, you're much more likely to have a successful upgrade than if not. So good job.
Right. So thank you. So, you buy the book, follow the instructions, and then when you get to the end, there's going to be a little meet me back here on upgrade day topic. And so when Mavericks is released, you check for updates, get download the new version of the book, and then we'll tell you exactly where to pick up. I'll fill in a couple of details that sort of apply to those earlier sections that I wasn't able to tell you before. But then I basically say, hey, if you followed what was in 1.0, just skip over the following chapters and start here, and then take it away. So we're going to try to make it as easy and painless as possible.
Always a good thing. Which I guess we'll see you back here on Upgrade Day for the 1.1 version of Take Control of Upgrading to Mavericks.
Sounds great.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices. We're going to take control of Mavericks from the upgrade process the whole way through, and Joe's going to be our guide. Until the next time, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for links, show notes, to subscribe, to connect with Chuck on Twitter, app.net, Google+, Facebook, and for more Apple, Mac, and tech-related shows, including MacVoices, Mac Notables, the Mac Jury, and the Mac Voices Briefing. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com.